is my great-grandfather, Ariki Tiaho, who served in the Māori battalion in World War I, the Pioneer Battalion. And this is my kuia, Huriana, after whom Huriana, my daughter's name, 5 generations of women in my whānau, Huriana. Hara mai nef.
Lots of nephews.
Yeah. All my whāngai kids. So these two married in the early 1800s, okay? I haven't got a good memory for precise dates. But the early 1800s. And they lived on the banks, the shores of the Akaroa Harbour, what is now known as the Banks Peninsula, but our name for it is Te Pātaka o Rā Kaihautū. So they lived on the banks of the Moana and in a place called Te Pātaka o Rā Kaihautū, or we would know it, many of you would know it as the Banks Peninsula. She was the mokopuna of Wee Karaweko, or Big William, and Mere Whāriu, or Big Mary. He's from Kahungunu, Ariki Tiaho, from Ngāti Pāhauwera.
Oh, yeah.
Aira. And from Ngāti Pāhauwera, and also from Tangoio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, anei oku tūpuna. She was 23 when she died of... She was the mokopuna of Wee Karaweko, or Big William, and Mere Whāriu, or Big Mary. He's from Kahungunu, Ariki Tiaho, from Ngāti Pāhauwera.
Oh, yeah.
Aira. And from Ngāti Pāhauwera, and also from Tangoio.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, anei oku tūpuna. She was 23 when she died in childbirth. And in those days that probably was relatively common because of the state of, medical practice at the time. Engari, however, we don't, to this day, know where she's buried. We don't, to this day, know where her babies are. She's lost to us. Kura went away and served in the Māori battalion, the Pioneer Battalion, and came back pōrangi because he had to shoot and kill people. And so he came back quite crazy, and he was known as, in Raupunga, he lived his last years in Raupunga. He had a house up on the hill close to the school in Raupunga, and he used to sit, and it was like a fortress. He had the big, what do you call those, like a manuka fence, sharpened sticks, a fence around his home, and he would sit on the doorstep on his rocking chair with his rifle across his lap, and if anybody tried to steal his lemons or come into his territory, he'd shoot above their heads. I hope he shot above their heads. So his story is a story of great pain. He never recovered from the war or from losing his beloved wife. You've got some hearts on it. This is their mokopuna Oh, before I drop it, kia ora. Slap, bring me back down to earth. Okay, that's Snowy, by the way. So named because apparently, according to the mamas, he's the only islander who can't handle the heat. Okay, kia ora Snowy. And this is Mum, Huriana Mei Te Aho. Mum was a ward of the state. And cousin Zach, you would know all her brothers and sisters, Mariah Spooner, Eparaima, Uncle Ep. He was Eparaima Petuha. He's the last one surviving. And then Uncle Duddy, Alfred Watson. There were some that we never knew until we had the last meeting with Mum when she was on the way out from cancer. So we had a party at my nanny's place. My nan was Kararaina Te Aho, and she married, we married into the Huata whānau as well. So Mum was a ward of the state. Her development was arrested. So she used to say things like funeral, like Mitsubishi. Her reo, her language was arrested back in those days when she was a child in the state ward system. So they were all wards of the state, all 8 of them, and they were put in different homes around Aotearoa. They couldn't even stay together. So as a result, Mum was quite violent with us, especially my sister. And so that the transfer of the violence learnt inside the state ward system, or those, I don't even want to call them a home because they were institutions, they weren't homes. So that was passed down through the generations to my generation. And when you have mokopuna, you can stand up and say enough. But still that ngako, that root of pain, that root of trauma never goes away. It never goes away. So what I've got my nephew to do is to put hearts and crosses on me, which represent trauma down through the generations. But what we see as psychologists, as social workers, is not that. We don't see this stuff. What we see is this. And unless we understand the instrumentality, the potency, and the power of historical trauma, and a transfer through history of unresolved trauma that bites at our DNA, that bites at our spirits, that it's living a life in constant pain and constant agony. And it comes out in a number of ways, and one of them is suicide. Another one is self-medication. Another one is self-harm. So when my baby, and this is the last thing I'll say, was lying in a coma in intensive care, and I was sitting beside her bed with the photos of our tūpuna saying, "Don't go, baby, don't go. Your nanny's here, your tūpuna are here, and they're telling you to come back. Don't go, it's not your time." But I understand that as Huriana being a legacy bearer of colonisation. So for those of you who don't understand the relationship between colonisation, it moves beyond theory. It's a heartfelt thing. It's a deep trauma that pervades everything that we are. And not just us, it has implications for my mokopuna, because it has implications for my children, because it has implications for my nieces and nephews. It pervades everything that we are, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. We stand up and we say, no more, no more. So I teach decolonisation for that reason. Okay, I think I've said enough. Have I talked over time, Pa?
Just.
Oh, kaupapa. Okay. Okay. Thank you for your help, nephew.